Hi, I'm Eli. I want to tell you a little bit about what I think is going to be very important and determine whether StarkNet succeeds or to what extent. And so the TLDR of my talk is that StarkNet will rise and fall on its integrity and other values, not on its technology. And we're building StarkNet as a long-lasting public good. So this talk, even though StarkWare is very famous for technology, and we do start thinking about technology, and that's like where we originated from, math, science, technology, and we're very proud of that. We embrace and acknowledge that blockchains are about integrity and other values related to society. And so this talk is going to be all about things related to society and values, and all of the technology you're going to hear in the amazing talks that are going to come later this day. So, who uses Starks? Well, when we came out with them in production in 2020, only StarkWare was using them. StarkX was the very first L2 validity rollup, way before the rest. And at the time, a lot of people were saying that the technology isn't quite right and we don't need it and so on. So fast forward to 2024, not just the concept of using ZK or validity proofs to scale blockchains is considered by everyone to be the end game, but when they come and pick which technology stack to build on, they're using the stuff that we invented. So by now, all of the Polygon teams, ZK Sync, RISC-0, and many, many others are using Starks because it's a better technology. Now, there's a whole stack behind StarkNet: Cairo, Sierra, account abstraction, a lot of other things, multi-calls, a lot of things that are baked into StarkNet. Who's using it today? Well, only StarkNet, but because it's all open source and we have the very best developer ecosystem out there, I'm pretty sure that come 2028, let's say, 4 years ahead, nearly everyone is going to be using it because because it has the very best next generation programming language for writing smart contracts, as those who've been at the hackathon probably are already aware of. That programming language is fully integrated into the Stark proving system, which is the best and fastest proving system, and you'll hear a lot more about performance and major upgrades to it throughout the day. And of course, we have the best and fastest growing and most aligned decentralized developer ecosystem. So others are necessarily going to adapt this tech stack, a lot of components of it, which raises the question, or we need to think about preparing for a state where the StarkNet stack becomes the L2 gold standard, just like Ethereum is the L1 standard. So if you're for Turing complete smart contract stuff, if you want to launch an L1, you're probably going to use many of the components of Ethereum. And likewise, I think we should prepare for a situation where StarkNet becomes the L2 standard, which means that a lot of others will be taking it, Cairo, the Cairo virtual machine, the OS and the protocol, and things like that. So overall, it's terrific news, but now if the technology becomes commoditized, so you can think about something like, the personal computers 20 or 30 years ago, everyone has this technology, a lot of it is open source, everyone can use it. Where does value accrue, and why will StarkNet remain something of value to anyone? And that's the content of this talk. So the postulate that I believe in, that we believe in, is that value accrues to the best integrity webs. So I prefer the word integrity webs to blockchains, but if you're asking yourself what is integrity web, think of it as something that is a blockchain. But I still want to define what are integrity webs. And then I want to discuss what purpose does StarkNet serve within this world of integrity webs. And then what makes an integrity web a good integrity web, because there's so many of them out there, the layer 1s, the layer 2s. There's a lot of speculation and fun and so on, but really, at some point, the dust will settle and people, humanity is going to ask which of these technologies and which of these ecosystems do we value. And I think we need to prepare for that stage. So let's start by answering three questions that I want to address. And the first one is about integrity webs. So often when we describe blockchains, or when I ask people, explain blockchains to your mom, how do you do that? So people will start by using all kinds of terminologies terms from the world of computer science, networks. But I actually think that's not the best way to describe them to the outside world. A much better way is to describe them in terms of the purposes they serve in our society and economy. Because really integrity webs, they do use computers, of course, and they do use cryptography, but what they deliver and what they're about are things that communities, economies care about. They are things related to freedom and human dignity and human rights. And so good integrity webs are ones that satisfy such constraints. So let's take an even broader context of where integrity webs or blockchains fit into the history of the human race. So here's there are a lot of developers out here. So this is like pseudocode for how history evolves. There's more to history than these 4 lines, but still, bear with me. So some new economic domain is discovered, and then there's some fortunate early comers that somehow manage to control a lot of it and extract a lot of the value of it and tell everyone else, look, it's really good if we're going to run the system and you'll be our vassals or, laborers and things like that. And then at some point society fights back and tries to make things a bit more fair, but then some new domain arises. And of course this happened with agrarian society in cities dating back 10,000 years ago. The Industrial Revolution, things happened much more quickly, but new forms of acquiring wealth emerged, and society had to somehow restructure things so that it becomes more balanced and takes care of society. And actually we're living in another phase of this thing, in the digital space. So with the World Wide Web, suddenly a lot of what we value resides in the digital space. And we have also a set of early on-comers who have offered a lot of value, but also along the way shaped the space according to their needs. And what integrity webs are about, they're a little bit about fighting back and saying, this digital space that has so much value to human society has to be managed in a different way, one that is more fair. So what are integrity webs? Well, to define them, let's first of all define what social functions are. So they are protocols and registries whose value necessitates broad social consensus regarding their integrity. So these are things whose value is derived mostly or only from the existence of consensus that they are worth something. And the prime example of this is, of course, money. Money is worthless unless we know that there is broad social consensus about the integrity of money, that it's functioning as it should. But there are a lot of other social functions related to governance and incorporations and decision-making and all kinds of social titles and things like that. And right now, most of them are administered by central parties, often nation states and things like that. Okay, so blockchains or integrity webs are infrastructure for running social functions, so for running these protocols and registries that carry tremendous value, things like money, but they must satisfy 3 conditions. So an integrity web is an infrastructure for social functions if it satisfies 3 conditions: broadness, incentivized integrity, and public verifiability. So broadness or decentralization means that the infrastructure should be based upon an open-to-all network. Open to all, everyone can join, permissionless. So that's how it's operated on this open-to-all network. Everyone is invited to become part of the operating class of this network. Incentivized integrity means that the way integrity is achieved is by distributing value. The protocol distributes value automatically to the operators, and it does so for the purpose of maintaining broad consensus about the integrity of the system. So if you think about Bitcoin's mining rewards and things like that, really what they're buying, the security, finality, liveness that they're buying, are about getting broad social consensus for the integrity of the system, that Bitcoin will remain, no double spends, so on and so forth. So it's an example of incentivized integrity. But all of the other chains that are giving, minting and mining fees and things like that, transaction fees to operators, are incentivizing integrity by transferring value, usually in a token that is defined only on that network. And somehow all of the operators, if they would somehow go against, in a public way, go against the integrity of the network, the value of that token and those assets would just drop to zero. So there's some sort of a benevolent feedback loop going on there. And that's, of course, one of the core inventions of Bitcoin. The last thing is public verifiability, which means that everything about both the protocols and the state of the system should be verified by everyone in a public manner, on public available means. Right? We should all know that everything is fine, not because some banker or regulator or appointed official tells us that is the case, but because we know that everyone, by available means, can check everything about it. So the code has to be source available and scrutinized. The math has to be peer-reviewed and published, and everything has to be out there in the open. And the state has to be verifiable by everyone. So StarkNet is an integrity web, and its purpose or mission is to be the integrity web on which global society runs. Now, this is also probably the goal of many other integrity webs, and there may be more than one that tries to take this position, and that's fine. What's unique about StarkNet is that it uses the integrity of math, in particular Starks, to impose integrity even on very large operators. Because the way blockchains without validity proofs work is that, okay, everyone inspects everything, but that limits scale. And the innovation of StarkNet or of Starks it shows that you can use this as sort of a vaulting board, or something that allows you to enforce integrity on much bigger things, because all we need to run are verifiers, and then we can curb the integrity of exponentially greater computation and much bigger institutions. And the reason, so why are we doing this, is because ultimately, I think in the digital space at least, we could arrive in a world in which integrity is never something that you need to assume, but rather it's something that should always be demonstrated publicly. So, right, we should be in the digital world, and we can be, thanks to integrity webs and things like Starks, we can be in a situation where everything we need to know about the integrity of, let's say, states and the financial system and things that we care about can be verified by everyone, and their integrity need not be assumed. So, what would make an integrity web good? Because remember, I said the technology, both of integrity webs and also of StarkNet, is going to be commoditized. So everyone is going to be building integrity webs that pretty much follow the blueprint of StarkNet. And what will make, so if we want to remain top of the game and be the integrity web that humanity trusts for social functions, things like governance and money and things like that, if we want to be that, and it's a hard goal to achieve, we're going to need to constantly improve on these three things that are most important. So broadness means we're going to need to constantly struggle against concentration of power by few. And we should always be thinking, like, right, there's this natural tendency of economies and society where power and control gets into the hands of few. And it's a never-ending struggle to sort of decentralize and broaden the base a bit more. But that's something that we'll need to take into account. And a lot of the thinking behind things like provisions and devonomics and bringing in inclusivity and bringing in new players and more players is about related to this broadness. We need this set of operators, right? Remember that in StarkNet, it's going to be a proof-of-stake based system. So we would like Starks to be distributed in the best possible way to ensure broadness in an everlasting way. Incentivized integrity means that when we think about tokenomics, There's going to be a very interesting talk by Professor Noam Nissan about tokenomics later today. We should try to fine-tune the mechanisms to maximize things like broadness, integrity, public verifiability, right? If you think about the minting schedule, if there's a burning schedule, staking schedule, really they should serve the purposes of maximizing the consensus around integrity. And public verifiability means, of course, that everything that is important and is the basis of the protocol should be source available, preferably even open source, as we're doing. And you should use safe programming languages so that the things that people are implementing, the social functions people are implementing over them, have as few bugs as possible. And you also need to use very good future-proof validity proofs with very good performance, cost, developer experience, and user experience. So this ties into most of what you'll be hearing today, because what we're still working very hard on is making the best, most performant, cheapest to use integrity web. But that's only one very small part of succeeding. So values that go along with this are things like lasting broadness. So broadness must be a value, right? We should never be satisfied with just, that it seems that you're not being censored, so things look fine. We should be striving constantly to dismantle centers of power and distribute things more fairly. We should strive for neutrality so that all social functions should be implementable without picking any, favorites or saying this is fine and this is not fine. And empowerment is probably the most important thing. Empowerment in education means that if this is social infrastructure, things used by societies, then without education of individuals about the importance and the values of why these things matter to society, this whole thing will just go up in smoke. So what is StarkWare doing in 2024? So now I spoke about like high lofty things, but how does this connect to what we're doing right now? So right now we're working on performance and cost, improving that, pushing the boundaries, and what about next year? So after we did this. So right now, TPS, if you measure things in terms of transactions per second for, let's say, ERC20 transfers, so we're right now at about 100. By end of year, hopefully we'll be 500 or more. I think you'll hear some talks about this, and there's some information about it through things like optimistic parallelization and moving the sequencer into Rust. So I'm an optimistic guy. Maybe we'll reach even 1,000 TPS. I'm going to give a talk in 2 days about how to get to 10,000 TPS, but we're not going to end there. Cost right now, if you look at L2 fees, we're the highest among L2s. Even though now very soon we'll be among the lowest. Hopefully, maybe there's some chance that we'll actually be the lowest, thanks to a lot of improvements that I don't want to spill the beans, but others are going to talk about them. So pushing the boundaries. There's we just published this beautiful joint work with Polygon called Circle Starks, which is a bunch of very beautiful math. Shahar Samocha will be talking about it at the meetup on Sunday, and it's going to be touched upon also in Owen's talk tomorrow. And then scaling, stay tuned. We have a lot to say about that. Next year, we'll have a new fast, starting to work or focusing on a new fast decentralized sequencer, hopefully 10,000 TPS. Sometime in the future, might take longer. We are just amazed by the amount of innovation going on outside of StarkWare, things like Cairo verifying, Fire, the gaming ecosystem. Huge shout out to Influence, who are just about to release their production system. Starks on Bitcoin, there are a bunch of talks about that today. AI and Cairo, and app chain stacks and multiple data availability layers, also a few talks about that today. With this, I want to thank you and hope you enjoy the day.